Tonight, if your thoughts feel like a fist that will not open, come sit beside your breath and let the fingers learn to loosen. You do not have to fix the past or predict the future to deserve rest. You only have to notice the tide of air moving in and out, faithful as the moon. With each inhale, gather yourself. With each exhale, release the name-calling, the rehearsed arguments, the hard shell of control. Imagine placing every worry on a small paper boat and setting it on a quiet river. They drift away not because you do not care, but because you finally trust the current. Let the jaw soften, shoulders fall, eyes grow heavy like dusk. Here, letting go is not losing it, is choosing a lighter way to love, to breathe, to sleep. Stay with me, and we will practice the art of gentle release together, right now. When night settles and the room grows quiet enough to hear your own breath, the mind often begins to parade its unfinished business, as if darkness were a stage and every memory, fear, and desire is eager for one more performance. Yet beneath that noise lives a softer invitation, a shoreline where waves of thought meet sand and dissolve without effort, and that is where we begin. Sit or lie down in whatever way your body can truly rest, not the pose you think looks holy or correct, but the shape that feels honest, and let the spine lengthen just enough to give the lungs room to travel. Inhale through the nose as if drawing in something kind. Exhale as if you are setting down a heavy suitcase you carried too far. The art of letting go is not an order to forget or an instruction to stop caring. It is a careful turning toward what is here, touching it with attention, and allowing its edges to blur until the grip loosens on its own. Notice how the mind wants to turn practice into a project and a project into a race. How it asks for a guarantee that if you breathe perfectly, life will finally conform, and smile gently at this habit, because perfection is just a fancy name for fear. Let your breath be simple, like the tide that never auditions for the sea, and feel the body respond in places you rarely visit with kindness. The muscles behind the eyes, the back of the tongue, the tiny space between two heartbeats. If a thought arrives wearing the costume of urgency, bow to it and name it softly. You are tomorrow's worry. You are last year's echo. You are the wish to control what is already moving. And let it sit on a bench by the door while you return to the rhythm of in and out. Letting go begins as a physical practice, the palms uncurling from imagined handles, the shoulders melting their old habit of holding up the sky, the belly remembering it does not need to armor against a world that is not attacking. Place one hand on the chest and one hand on the lower belly so the body can feel its own reassurance. Often, the nervous system trusts touch before it understands words. As the breath rounds out and lengthens, picture a lake at dusk, the surface smoothing as wind quiets, and every thought that lands there sending just a few ripples before the water returns to stillness. This is not a performance. It is a homecoming. Without forcing, allow your attention to rest where the breath first meets you at the nostrils. Cool on the inhale, warm on the exhale. A miniature season change occurring every few seconds. In this reliable cycle, you begin to see how clinging tires you, how much energy is spent scripting other people's lines, polishing old scenes, forecasting outcomes with the accuracy of a weather vane spun by restless hands. Let that revelation soften the jaw. You do not fail by releasing a story that once helped you. You mature. Even grief can be held without being gripped, because when love has nowhere to land, it becomes a bird fluttering against closed windows. And the moment you open the window a crack, it can rest. Imagine now that you are walking along a path carrying a bag filled with stones, each stone a belief or memory that once felt necessary. And tonight you have permission to set a few down. Not all, not forever, just enough to feel the ground again. Reach into the bag and find a stone called "I must be strong all the time." A smooth and convincing thing that taught you to survive, but also taught you to hide. Place it by the path and watch how the arm that held it begins to swing freely. Reach again and find a stone called "The past should have been different." A jagged piece that scrapes your palm whenever sleep is near. Set it down and notice how the breath meets less resistance. Reach again and discover a small but heavy pebble called "What if I am not enough?" A pebble that multiplied in the dark and became a wall. As you set it down, feel the chest widen by a finger's breadth, which is plenty for the night air to stroke your heart. This is not magical thinking. It is the ordinary magic of nervous tissue learning that safety does not require certainty. Allow the face to relax as if it were listening to rain, and remember that control is a plan the body made when it was not sure it would be cared for. And you can thank that plan and choose presence instead. Presence is a softer power. It says, "I will meet whatever comes with the resources of a steady breath and a kind gaze. And I will meet what leaves with the grace of open hands." When the mind objects that letting go is dangerous, ask it to point to the danger in this room, at this moment, with this breath, and if there is none, invite it to sit at your feet like a careful watchdog who can finally nap. Feel the bed holds you the way earth holds roots, without conditions, and let the weight of your body be a prayer that says, "I am here." With each exhale, imagine a single thread of tension loosening, the way a knotted necklace slowly frees itself when given time and gentle motion. The neck lengthens, the shoulders drop, the hips grow like stones resting at the bottom of a clear stream. In the Dharma, we are taught that everything constructed changes, and everything changing can be greeted with curiosity rather than panic. Try that now with a feeling in your chest or a thought that returns again and again like a song on a loop. Instead of pushing it away or following it into the past, turn the light of attention toward it and ask, what are you protecting? What do you need to say before you can rest? And then listen without trying to repair. Often the body answers with a sigh or a tear or a small shiver. And the mind mislabels these as problems when they are actually exits. Trust the exits. Let the exhale be longer than the inhale by a few gentle counts, signaling to the nervous system that the tiger has left and the forest is quiet. If you like, imagine exhaling through the soles of your feet into the ground, because nothing that belongs to heaviness needs to stay above the soil tonight. As life's images pass across the inner screen, practice blessing them rather than battling them. Bless the image of your younger self who tried so hard to be loved. Bless the image of the person who could not meet you where you stood. Bless the version of your future that will never be, not because you failed, but because the river chose a wiser turn. Blessing is a way of loosening the knot without cutting the rope. In the space that opens, allow gratitude to take one slow step forward, not as a performance, but as a sensation, warm and modest. For simple things, the breath that continues without your management, the roof guarding you from weather, the way fabrics remember your shape, the way night gathers the edges of the world and makes them soft. Gratitude does not deny pain. It adds context, so pain does not have to be everything. If the mind tries to reassemble its old committee of critics, bid them good night with the authority of someone who is allowed to sleep. You do not need to earn rest with explanations. You do not need to sign a contract with tomorrow. You are allowed to be a living creature on a quiet planet for a little while, inhaling what the trees exhale, exhaling what the trees inhale, the oldest friendship. Now, imagine placing the day on a small raft. Place the conversations, the decisions, the inputs and screens and messages, every unfinished sentence and unreturned call. Place your best idea and your worst worry. Watch the raft drift into a wide lake under a patient moon. The raft does not sink because you are not on it. You are on the shore, wrapped in a blanket of breath, holding only what fits inside this moment. If guilt arrives disguised as duty, remind it that rest is the duty of a body that wishes to be kind tomorrow. If fear arrives disguised as vigilance, remind it that carefulness is different from relentless watchfulness, and carefulness knows when to close the gates. What remains now is a very simple companionship between you and the breath, you and the pulse in your fingertips, you and the sound of night animals or city hum, or the subtle hush behind both. Let your awareness widen and then narrow like a lens, finding the distance that feels clearest. If sleep comes, let it take you like a gentle tide, and if wakefulness lingers, rest anyway. Because resting is a cousin of sleep, and sometimes the body needs the cousin first. The practice is not wasted when sleep is slow. The practice is working beneath the surface, like roots preparing spring while the branches appear still. Whisper to yourself words that even a tired heart can understand. I release what is not this breath. I keep what is kind. I belong in this exact moment. The mind will test these statements, and that is fine. It has practiced doubting longer than it has practiced trusting. We do not argue with it. We show it another way by staying with the breath, which neither defends nor attacks. Over time, the inner weather shifts. The air inside becomes more breathable, and the part of you that always knew how to float surfaces yawns and smiles. Tonight you are practicing an art older than thought, and it leaves no mark except ease. You can return to it as many times as you forget it, and forgetting is not failure, it is the bell calling you back. Breathe in as if accepting an invitation, breathe out as if giving one, and let the night hold you exactly as you are, which is more than enough. Let us continue by softening the misunderstanding that letting go means losing what is precious, because the heart resists any practice it confuses with abandonment. And so we will clarify with patience and warmth until resistance can rest. To let go in the Dharma is to release the extra grasping layered upon a natural love, like untangling tape from a gift so the ribbon can shine. And it is to trust that care does not need a clenched fist to be real. Begin by feeling a relationship, a project, a hope, resting gently in your hands. Notice how affection and fear can look similar in the dark, as both lean forward, but only fear squeezes, while affection holds with space. Imagine the difference between holding a bird and caging it. One honors life, the other tries to control it into stillness. Letting go bows to life as moving and says, I will dance with you while you are here, and I will bow when you change. And this bow is not defeat, but respect for impermanence. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are transient, and the mind hears this as loss. Yet within change is the freedom from having to freeze the river, because frozen rivers cannot nourish fields and cannot carry boats, while flowing rivers nourish and carry and sing. Tonight the practice is to notice where you are still freezing parts of your life and to warm them with breath until the ice thins and a music of release returns. Bring attention to the image of your younger self who tried strategies that worked for a time, perfection to gain approval, busyness to outrun worry, pleasing to prevent conflict. Thank these strategies for their service, as a village thanks its old bridges. And notice that the river has widened and the old bridges cannot span it anymore. Letting go is the courage to retire them with gratitude so new crossings can be built. Feel your shoulders lower as you tell the body it does not have to keep the world upright. The world knows how to spin without your jaw clenched. If a voice inside protests that loosening means negligence, invite it to test this. Unclench the hand around one small concern and notice how attention sharpens rather than dulls. How kindness becomes more precise when anxiety is not fogging the lens. Anxiety is loud but not wise. It shouts instructions that contradict themselves. Run faster and slow down, say something and say nothing. While the breath speaks in a steady tone, here, now, soften. And that tone is how wisdom sounds in the body. Rest your awareness in the place where the inhale turns into the exhale. A small threshold that teaches transitions are survivable and often gentle when not resisted. As thoughts rise, practice the discipline of friendly witnessing. If an image of a person appears and pulls on you, breathe and say inwardly, I allow you to be as you are in this moment. And I allow me to be as I am. And notice the pressure lessen without any manipulation. Allowing is not passive. It is active non-violence toward reality, and it creates the conditions for true response rather than reflexive reaction. In the space created by allowing, compassion can arise not as a plea to be hurt again, but as the recognition that everyone you meet is also carrying invisible bundles and that most harm is clumsy guarding of old wounds. Compassion does not mean remaining in harmful situations. It means setting boundaries without hatred, which is one of the finest forms of letting go. The release of the story that you must endure pain to prove love. Now turn toward the body as a teacher that does not lie. Scan from the crown to the soles and pause wherever tension speaks first. Perhaps the throat, perhaps the belly, perhaps the small muscles along the spine that grip like tiny fists. Breathe there as if pouring warm water over a knot, and listen to what the knot says it protects. Often it says, I protect against being seen, or I protect against not being seen, which is the same ache wearing two masks. Place one palm over that area and offer a sentence so simple it can pass through tension without argument. Thank you for working so hard. You can rest for now. The body understands sincerity more than eloquence. Say it again if you need to, with less performance and more tenderness. Watch how a fraction of the knot melts, and remember that fractions add up over nights like this. Letting go is incremental. Even autumn releases leaf by leaf. Bring to mind a decision you are holding too tightly, a crossroads that keeps you awake with its demand for certainty. Imagine placing both options on a table in front of you and bowing to each. The bow disarms urgency. Then ask the breath to sit between them and let the exhale lengthen a little. Feel how space grows around the images, and in that space you may notice a third quiet wisdom, that you do not need to decide from fear of missing out, but from fidelity to your values. Values are steady stars. Fear is a flickering lantern. Letting go here means releasing the fantasy of a perfect outcome and choosing a path that aligns with who you are when you are not scrambling to please a chorus of imagined judges. The Dharma offers right view as a compass, and right view begins not with metaphysics, but with honesty. This is stress. This is its cause. This is its ending. This is the path. Tonight the path is breath, kindness, clarity, patience. Each breath is a step. Each step reduces the domain of panic. If regret rises with its familiar ache, do not exile it. Ask what it wishes you to learn. Regret often tells the simple truth that you crossed your own boundary or ignored a whisper. Thank it for the message and let it return to the sea as a wave returns after kissing shore. If shame attempts to sit on your chest, remember it is a story about identity born from moments of pain. Let your breath remind you that you are not a single moment. You are a moving field of tenderness, learning skills. Turning toward shame with curiosity dissolves its spell. Because curiosity cannot coexist with self-contempt. Ask gently, what would this part of me do if it trusted it was already worthy? And follow that answer for 3 breaths. You may be astonished at the lightness that arrives. Consider the practice of small relinquishments throughout a day as training for nights like this. Delete a file you do not need. Donate a shirt you never wear. Speak one less defensive sentence. Schedule 5 minutes with no task and keep the appointment. Each act whispers to the nervous system that letting go does not collapse life, it refines it. The room of your existence becomes more breathable, and sleep recognizes such rooms as safe to enter. If the mind races, offer it a mantra that moves at the speed of kindness, something as humble as on the inhale, let, on the exhale, go. Not as magic words, but as rhythm keepers. Feel the mattress receive you in real time, which is another way of saying you are allowed to be supported by something that expects nothing in return. If a memory arrives that once felt unbearable, meet it with the stance of a wise elder within you who has seen many winters and does not panic at snow. The elder does not dismiss the storm. The elder adds firewood and tells a story about surviving change. Tell yourself now a true story about one change you met and did not think you could meet, and how you became larger in the meeting. Let that story outweigh the habit of self-doubt by a small but meaningful margin. Allow the breath to widen into the back ribs, a place where vigilance hides. Let the shoulders broaden into quiet, and imagine the heart as a lantern with adjustable light. Turn the light down for sleep, not to hide but to rest, knowing you can turn it up tomorrow. Release the contract you unconsciously signed that says you must think your way into peace. Tonight, peace will arrive the way dusk arrives, by degrees, as you stop chasing it and create the conditions for it to find you. The conditions are present moment, soft body, kind words inward, willingness to trust that the floor exists even when the eyes are closed. If tears gather, let them be the river carrying old leaves. If laughter rises unexpectedly, let it be the wind that clears fog. Nothing that happens in this kind of tension is wrong. You are practicing the graceful refusal to carry what is not yours and the generous acceptance of what is, which is the balance the heart has always wanted. In this balance, sleep is not an achievement but a side effect of belonging. And belonging is the feeling of being at home in your breath. Stay here a little longer, unhurried, as the night edits the day into quieter lines. And know that whatever you set down in sincerity will stay set down, and whatever returns can be greeted again without drama. The art is cumulative and forgiving. You can begin again as many times as there are breaths, and that number is abundant. Imagine the breath as a wide, steady pillow that appears the moment you remember it. A pillow you can rest the whole length of your attention upon, and let us learn how to lie down there gently. Because when the body feels supported, the mind no longer needs to patrol every doorway of the night. Begin by letting the mouth soften and close, the tongue resting like a quiet animal in its cave, and draw air in through the nose as if you are smelling warm tea from a distance. Not greedy, not shy, simply welcoming. Feel the ribs open like an old book whose pages still know how to turn. Feel the belly receive the wave without resistance. And on the exhale, let the wave return to the ocean of the room. The breath is not a trick to control life. It is a bridge that carries you back from the outskirts of worry to the center where you actually exist. And in this center, there is simple work to do that is also a relief. Notice, allow, soften, repeat. If you like numbers, let the inhale count to 4 in an unhurried way and the exhale count to 6. Not as a competition, but as a lullaby in 2 measures. And if numbers feel sharp, trade them for words that round the edges. Breathing in the phrase, I am here, and breathing out the phrase, I can let go. Place one palm on the heart and one on the belly, and imagine the hands are listening. Because hands listen better than the mind when we are tired. Notice the small swell and fall under each hand, and consider that this swell and fall is older than your oldest story, and therefore trustworthy. The shoulders may want to rise with each inhale as if trying to help, but they are retired from that job tonight. Invite them to sink into the mattress as leaves sink toward a lake bed when autumn asks them gently to rest. Let the breath widen into the back body, which often forgets it is allowed to breathe, like a shy room in a large house, and sense how the breath moves side to side as well. A soft widening that reminds you there is more space available than the mind advertises at midnight. If a thought jumps onto the pillow with you, there is room for both of you. But you can ask the thought to curl at the edge while you lie in the middle. And if it refuses, roll toward the breath again without argument. Tonight we practice friendly perseverance, the kind a parent uses when walking a child back to bed for the 5th time. Not angry, not dramatic, just here you go, sweetheart, the bed is where you rest. With each cycle, watch how the exhale learns to carry away a little grit left by the day on the inside of the ribs, and how the inhale returns with a cloth of cool air to polish what remains. You are laundering your nervous system with attention. Inhale lifting, exhale lowering, and in the middle, a moment that is neither. A pause like the top of a swing where time briefly nods. Touch that pause with awareness and see that it requires no effort. Effort is invited to set down its toolbox at the door. If the mind insists you are not doing it right, nod to that ancient supervisor and offer it a small assignment so it feels useful. Supervisor, please count 10 breath cycles and then take a break. And at 10, invite it to take another break. And often this is enough to keep it occupied while you rest on the pillow that does not judge. Let the breath become textured, not with goals, but with images that soothe the animal of the body. Imagine inhaling through the soles of the feet, cool river water rising to the knees, to the hips, to the belly, rinsing fatigue from the joints, and exhaling that water back into the earth, warm now, carrying tension away like silt. Imagine the ribs as lanterns whose paper shades expand on the inhale and soften their glow on the exhale, lighting the room inside just enough that shadows no longer pretend to be monsters. Imagine the heart as a room with a window slightly open, curtains moving with each breath, the kind of small movement that promises sleep will find its way in. If worry appears with its stack of papers to review, ask it kindly to place the stack on the windowsill and let the night breeze flip pages by itself. You will read in the morning with a rested mind, which is a truer kind of diligence than forcing your eyes across lines while the body begs for mercy. Notice how the breath coordinates 1,000 small releases, how the jaw lets go when the exhale lengthens, how the pelvic floor softens when the belly is allowed to rise, how the small muscles at the base of the skull unclench when the tongue drops from the roof of the mouth. The body believes what repetition says, so we repeat the message of safety with every wave. You are supported, you are allowed, you are home. If you find yourself tightening to make the breath longer, ease back to natural breathing and ride it as it is. Because riding what is real is the essence of the Dharma and the essence of rest. Natural breath is enough. It always has been. Feel how the mattress meets the back of the head, the shoulder blades, the sacrum, the heels, the places where bones say hello to earth through fabric, and let the breath arrive at each of those stations like a friend dropping off warm soup on a winter evening. No explanations required. If emotion rises, let the breath widen to include it, because the breath can be a wide country, and emotion is often just weather crossing that country. Rain does not ruin the land. It feeds it. Tears do not ruin practice. They salt the soil for future kindness. When the breath catches around a memory, do not force it through. Imagine a hand on your back guiding you around the knot with a small detour, and then rejoining the main path a few steps later, which is still the same path, still the same destination called ease. Sometimes sleep hovers just beyond reach and the mind begins to bargain, offering additional breaths as payment. Smile at this earnestness and remind yourself that breath is not a currency but a cradle. And cradles do their work when you stop counting how many minutes you have been rocked. Let the breath rock you anyway, because rocking is older than thinking and usually more convincing. You may hear the room more clearly as the mind quiets, the faint hum of a refrigerator, the distant pulse of traffic, the soft punctuation of wind. And you can let these sounds braid with the breath into a single lullaby. The world singing, I am here, you are safe, we are together. If silence is what you hear, then let silence sing, because it knows the tune as well. Return now to the inhale as welcome and the exhale as release, and allow the welcome to be sincere, not a performance. Welcoming this exact breath with its quirks, and allow the release to be complete, not theatrical. Simply letting the body drop what it can. Between welcome and release lives trust, the ingredient that transforms technique into rest. And you cultivate it by not rushing, by not scolding, by letting the practice be simple enough that even your most tired parts understand. At some point you may forget you were practicing, the way a swimmer forgets they are moving when the current carries them, and that forgetting is a blessing we do not chase. If you remain awake, you are still allowed to feel the gift of being unburdened for a while, watching thoughts approach like small boats and steer away without docking. If sleep arrives, it will arrive because you built a soft harbor out of breath and patience. Either way, the breath continues as a faithful pillow under the head of attention, and you can return to it whenever the night asks. Before you drift, whisper quietly to yourself a promise that is also a permission. I will meet myself with breath before I meet myself with judgment. I will lie down on kindness before I lie down on conclusions. And let the words dissolve into the rhythm that carried every ancestor through every dark hour, in and out. In and out, the oldest cradle, the gentlest art. There is a moment, often just after the light clicks off, when a feeling rises like a wave and the mind rushes to either ride it recklessly or dam it with force. And tonight we practice a third way that is quieter and far more merciful. We will greet the wave by its true name and let it pass as waves do when no one tries to trap the sea. Begin by noticing the first signal in the body, a flutter in the chest, a tight ring at the throat, a dim heaviness behind the eyes, and instead of translating it immediately into a story about success or failure, say inwardly, hello, I see you, you are here, and give it a simple name that does not accuse, such as worry, sadness, loneliness, anticipation, or even just energy. Names are bridges. They let us cross from confusion to contact, and contact softens everything. If you cannot find a perfect word, give it a kind placeholder, like this is a wave, and see how the nervous system loosens under honesty. In many languages, there are words for weather that passes quickly and for seasons that stay, and feelings come as both. So listen for which this is, and allow the body to host it without turning the house upside down. Allowing is not collapse. It is the strength to stop fighting what is already inside the door. Imagine you are sitting on a shore where the waves roll in, and the sand receives them and the water slides back without resistance. When a thought says we must analyze or fix, invite it to sit beside you and watch instead. Let your breath be the rhythm that keeps you company, the gentle in and out that reminds you there is more space here than the wave believes. When the feeling begins to shout its favorite sentences, I cannot do this, they do not care, something terrible will happen. Recognize that these are the slogans of a tired protector who learned long ago that warnings equal love. Thank the protector and redirect your attention to the body where truth is simpler. Place your palm on the place that speaks the loudest and keep it there as if you are holding the hand of someone who has had a long day. Say a sentence so steady it could be stitched into a quilt. I am here with you. You can be as you are for now. We will move when it is time. Notice how heat, weight, tingling, pressure, or trembling shift under acknowledgement. Not because you forced them, but because they were waiting to be accompanied. In this companionship, you may discover the small stories underneath the loud ones. The way anger sometimes covers hurt, the way hurt sometimes covers love, the way love sometimes covers fear of losing love. Each layer unclenches when you promise not to make it perform or disappear. If the wave grows, widen your stance of attention the way a tree widens its roots in wind. Feeling the mattress under your back, the blanket along your skin, the air moving at the nostrils, and let these anchors balance the swell. You are not just the water, you are also the shore that holds the shape of this night. If images flicker across the mind like fast storms, name them too with the gentleness of a librarian shelving books. Here is the argument. Here is the memory of the hospital. Here is the fantasy of being perfect. Here is the fear of being ordinary, and keep breathing. Because naming without breathing becomes bureaucracy, while naming with breath becomes care. When the urge to push the wave away becomes strong, try the smallest bow of consent. A mental nod that says, I allow this experience to be present in this moment, and observe how the urge to run loosens its grip by a degree or two. Degrees matter. They add up to a softer night. If the mind accuses you of passivity, remind it that allowing is what lets you see clearly enough to choose wise action when morning comes. Trying to fix everything at midnight is like trying to sail in fog with the anchor still down. Tonight the action is tenderness, and tenderness is not a lesser intelligence. It is the intelligence of patience, and patience knows the difference between a fire that needs water and a fire that needs time to reveal. It was only sunlight through a window. Some waves will bring old scenes with them, and those scenes may ask for justice or apology or change. You can note these requests without answering them right now. Tell the scene we will revisit you in daylight with pen and calendar when I am rested, and mark a mental page so you keep your promise. The body trusts promises you keep. Return again to the sensation of breathing as if the breath is a soft brush painting calm across the inside of your ribs. Paint over the tight places, not to hide them, but to accompany them until their edges blur. You may notice that naming a wave reduces its enormity. The way a mountain viewed from a plain is still a mountain, but no longer blocks the horizon. You may also notice that some waves repeat each night in similar forms. And if so, you can give them gentler names over time. Instead of catastrophe, call it the old sentinel. Instead of failure, call it the student. And immediately, the relationship changes from enemy to teacher. Ask the teacher one sincere question. What do you want me to know so you can rest and wait in the quiet that follows? Even if no words arise, your listening is medicine. If you find yourself slipping back into analysis, disguised as naming, pause and return to raw sensation, the texture beneath label, the electricity or dullness or spreading warmth, and let the body complete its cycle. The body is old and wise. It knows how to finish what the mind interrupts. As sensation crests, ride it with long exhales. As if you are helping a friend across a shallow river, hand in hand, patient with the slips. As it falls, do not chase. The ocean does not chase its waves. It receives them and releases them, and you are learning to be ocean. In this practice, an unexpected kindness can appear toward people who once seemed impossible, because seeing your own waves teaches you that others are also made of weather, and you begin to forgive clumsy storms without inviting them to live in your house. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means releasing the leash that kept your heart dragging the past across every room. You can lay the leash down on the nightstand beside your phone and your glasses and let your heart sleep without guarding the door. If tears arrive, name them too. Hello, relief. Hello, grief. And let them salt the shore. Salt cleans and preserves. It reminds us that tenderness is strong enough to hold memory without drowning. If numbness arrives and you feel nothing at all, name that with the same respect. Hello, emptiness. Hello, quiet armor, and do not force openings. Instead, offer warmth, breath, time, and the promise that you will keep returning with tea and blankets until the armor loosens of its own accord. This is how trust grows inside. To deepen the practice, imagine a small candle at the center of your chest, whose flame does not fight the dark, but clarifies the room around it. With each inhale, the candle breathes. With each exhale, the flame steadies. By this light, you continue naming whatever emerges: impatience, softness, boredom, tenderness, resistance, gratitude. Boredom is just a doorway. Name it, and you may find rest on the other side. Resistance is a doorway to. When you call it by name, it often steps aside. Gratitude sometimes appears quietly after the storm, noticing the weight of the blanket, the shelter of a roof, the gift of a body that carried you here, and gratitude is medicine that spreads quickly without asking for applause. Let it spread. If the wave returns, as waves do, begin again without scolding yourself for repetition. Beginning again is the heartbeat of practice. Each return is a thread in a sturdier fabric, and the fabric becomes a place you can sleep. Before you drift, make one more gentle scan through the body and whisper the simplest labels you can find. Calm in the forehead, soft at the temples, heavy in the eyelids, spacious in the mouth, warm at the throat, open at the chest, wide in the ribs, loose at the belly, grounded in the hips, relaxed in the thighs, restful in the knees, sinking in the calves, quiet in the ankles, released in the feet. If any word does not fit, do not force it. Choose one that does, or let silence stand in for speech. Sense how the named places seem to collaborate, how a choir emerges from single notes, and the song sounds like permission. Let that permission be the last thing you consciously remember. Permission to feel without drowning, to think without spiraling, to rest without solving, to wake more whole because you dared to meet the night as it is. Naming the wave was never about control. It was about intimacy with your own life, and intimacy is the one weight that does not burden, because it dissolves the distance between you and the present. Now the wave has passed or softened, and in its place is the quiet shore and the slow tide of breath. And you are welcome to lie down fully in this softness, to surrender your name to for a while, to be only a warm animal sleeping in a safe den, while the ocean of the world keeps breathing for you until morning. To rest more deeply tonight, we will look gently into the nature of change, not as an abstract lesson, but as a soft lamp that makes the furniture of our life easier to navigate in the dark. And the lamp is called impermanence, the simple truth that everything that is constructed shifts, rises, fades, and appears again in new forms. And when we let this truth into the room, clinging loosens because we realize there is nothing we can freeze without losing its life. Begin by observing the most intimate proof available, the breath that arrives unannounced and departs without apology. Each inhale a beginning, each exhale a completion. And in the tender pause between them, you can feel the kindness of endings when they are not resisted. A kindness that says space is returning so that something fresh can be welcomed. Notice how sensations themselves have the courtesy to move if you do not nail them to a narrative. A tightness in the chest that becomes warmth, that becomes ease. A swirl of thoughts that becomes a single sentence, that becomes silence. A worry that becomes a yawn, that becomes sleep. And this choreography is happening whether we approve or not. The mind often mistrusts impermanence because it confuses change with loss and loss with danger. Yet the deepest danger for a living being is not change, but stiffness. Because stiffness makes us brittle, and brittleness breaks in the weather of life. Softness bends and returns. Try an experiment with your attention now. Choose one element in your field of experience. Perhaps the faint hum beyond the wall, or the glow behind closed eyelids, or the slow tide of the belly. And watch it for 10 breaths, not to control it, but to become a student of its motion. By the 7th breath, you will notice something shift. The pitch alters, the glow flickers, the belly wave deepens. And this discovery feels oddly relieving, because what moves will move on, and what moves on does not need to be carried to tomorrow. As you become familiar with the rhythm of change, recall a memory that once felt like a permanent climate, a heartbreak, a fear, a shame that seemed endless, and see how it is not the climate now, even if echoes still visit like weather. And let this remembering plant a seed of trust that even current storms have edges. Impermanence is not a cold doctrine. It is an invitation to appreciate and to release in the same gesture. To sip the tea fully because it will cool, to hold a hand with presence because one day it will be gone. To speak truth tonight because waiting for the perfect moment is a way of refusing life while it is offered. When we resist impermanence, we clutch, and clutching turns love into anxiety, work into obsession, rest into a project. But when we bow to impermanence, clutching opens into care, because care knows how to touch and let go without turning away. Picture now a small table at the side of your bed, and on it a bowl of water. On your inhale, imagine placing in the bowl a single leaf that represents something you have been trying to keep exactly as it was. And on your exhale, watch the leaf float and turn, still itself, yet constantly rearranged by the water and the air, and sense how beauty lives not in holding it still, but in watching it move. This is true of identities too. You are not the same self who laid down yesterday. You are a living process, shaped by breath, by attention, by kindness. And when you allow the self to be fluid, perfectionism loses its courtroom because the judge cannot find a fixed defendant to condemn. Let that recognition ease your face. Feel the skin around the eyes soften. Feel the mouth unclench. Feel the throat widen as if it were a small doorway opening for nightbirds. If grief arises as you contemplate change, welcome it as evidence that you have loved and that love wants room to expand rather than harden. Grief is not a malfunction of the heart. It is its wisdom moving through, cleaning altars, making space for future offerings. Sit with grief the way you would sit with a friend packing a suitcase. You do not rush the folding. You do not pretend the trip is not happening. You touch each shirt. You lay it gently. You pause to breathe. And after a while, the case closes by itself. Impermanence also heals the anxious need to predict, because prediction is a response to fear, and fear argues that only if we know will we be safe. Yet what we usually know for certain is only that things will change. When you admit that honestly and kindly, energy formerly spent on prediction becomes available for presence. And presence tends to the one thing you can actually influence. The tone of this breath and the quality of your next word, which are small and mighty powers. Notice how the body receives this shift toward presence, like soil receiving rain. The belly loosens, the shoulders fall by a millimeter, the hands forget to clench. Let the palms face upward for a few breaths to signal to your nervous system that receiving is permitted. And on the exhale, allow the fingers to lengthen as if releasing threads that were tangled around them. Think of an area of life where you have been waiting for perfect clarity before taking a small, kind action. Perhaps reaching out to someone, perhaps tidying a corner of your room, perhaps placing your phone outside the bedroom. Let impermanence support you in choosing one small action tomorrow, not because it solves everything, but because it honors the truth that moments accumulate into landscapes. And gentleness practiced now becomes the terrain you walk next week. Impermanence teaches compassion as well. Every person you meet is changing. Their moods, their opinions, their capacities are weather. And when you remember that, you do not need to take every gust personally, nor do you need to worship every sunny moment as proof of forever. You can respond appropriately and release the rest. The same compassion can be extended inward. The you who worries is a passing weather pattern within the larger sky of you, and you can hold that pattern with understanding while trusting the sky remains wider. If a thought insists that letting go of permanence means nothing matters, answer that the opposite is true. Things matter more precisely and tenderly because they will not last. The kiss matters because it ends. The meal matters because it disappears. The breath matters because you will exhale it, and it will never return in the same way. This is not tragedy. It is the alchemy that turns ordinary time into precious presence. To deepen the felt sense of this, bring attention to the sounds around you and listen as if you were a forest, not a judge. Notice each sound arise, bloom, fade, and vanish, and after it vanishes, notice the lingering trace, the way the room seems more spacious for having hosted it. And let your mind become like that room, generous to arrivals and departures, adding nothing, withholding nothing. If an old fear says, "But what about me? I have always been this way," invite it to present evidence from the body at this exact moment. And as it looks, it will find that even its own voice quivers and falls. and that recognition creates a slight smile at the corner of your mouth. The smile of someone no longer fooled by thunder into thinking the sky is breaking. While lying here, imagine seasons moving through you gently. Spring touching the ribs with a green feeling. Summer warming the chest. Autumn releasing the shoulders like leaves. Winter quieting the forehead like snow. And with each season feel how the same body hosts many moods. None absolute, all welcome in their time. Let that image reassure the part of you that fears being stuck. Nothing alive is stuck in the way fear imagines. Even pain, when listened to without panic, reveals edges, waves, and small mercies. Even joy, when cherished without grasping, reveals humility, openness, and the wish to be shared. You can practice a simple sentence rhythm now to weave impermanence into rest. On the inhale, whisper, things change. On the exhale, whisper, and I can soften. And allow the mantra to be less a command than a description, like noting stars as they appear at dusk. If sleep approaches, do not hurry to catch it. Let it arrive the way tide arrives, lapping slowly at the shoreline you have tended with breath and understanding. If wakefulness remains, rest in impermanence anyway, resting in the trust that even wakefulness has a curve, and the curve will bend. Let the trust be felt in the weight of your bones, in the way the bed accepts you without conditions, in the warmth of the blanket that cannot promise a future but can offer this moment fully. Place your attention now lightly on the heart and imagine it as a traveler who has carried many names and houses and seasons and is willing to continue, not because it is fearless, but because it has learned to love what arrives and bow to what leaves. And that is a courage beyond bravado. Tell this traveler it may set down its heavy maps. The path is made by walking gently and by breathing kindly. Tell it that impermanence will be a guide, not a threat, because impermanence is simply the shape of reality when reality is honest. With that, allow the edges of your awareness to soften like paper left in sun. Words fading into texture, stories loosening into sensations. Sensations settling into the slow pulse that has accompanied you since the first day you tasted air. You are carried by rhythms older than fear, and they will carry you beyond it. Tonight you have practiced seeing through change rather than fighting it. And in that seeing, the mind becomes less like a fist and more like an open hand. And open hands sleep more easily because they are not required to hold the world while the world turns. Let go, not into nothing, but into motion. Into trust that the current knows its way. Into the kindness of a night that changes even as you do. Both of you breathing each other into a softer dawn. Tonight, we will practice setting down one small stone at a time, because the heart learns lightness through humble gestures repeated until they become its native language. And metaphors can guide the hands when words feel too sharp. Imagine you have been walking all day with a pack you forgot to remove when you came inside. You lay on the bed with the straps still digging into your shoulders. And it would be odd to analyze the straps instead of loosening them. So let us find the buckles together. Begin with the forehead, as if you were taking off a headband that is a half size too tight. Slide it upward with your attention and feel the skin sigh. The space between the brows widen by a breath's width, which is enough for evening to enter. Move to the eyes and place 2 fingertip touches without pressure, only presence. Then invite the lids to grow heavy the way dusk grows heavy in a quiet town, where shopkeepers flip signs and streets belong to crickets. The jaw is a stone many of us carry unconsciously. Unclasp it by resting the tongue against the ridge behind the top teeth and allowing the bottom jaw to drift as if floating on a small lake. This alone can unravel a chain of tension that reaches down the throat and into the chest, because the body believes it is finally off duty. In the chest, imagine a birdcage whose door you forgot to open. With each exhale, swing that door gently until the hinges remember their song. And picture the bird you love most taking a few calm hops to the threshold and then settling on a perch that feels safe inside. Because freedom sometimes looks like ease rather than escape. Place one hand over the heart and one on the belly, and feel how the heat gathers under your palms. A quiet campfire that does not need tending to keep you warm. Let the heat teach you to trust small signals more than huge promises. If you notice a thought, a headline from earlier, or a list of tasks, do not chase it as if it were a thief. Let it pass like a stranger walking by your window while you are inside sipping tea. Lift the cup in your mind, taste steam, swallow presence. You have time for this because you are making time, and making time is how we make a life rather than a series of emergencies. Imagine now that your ribs are a set of French doors leading to a garden. On the inhale, they open just enough to let a night breeze in. On the exhale, they close gently but not all the way, because you want the scent of jasmine to stay. In this garden, there are stones along the path, and each stone has a word, not to condemn you, but to name what can be set down. One stone says comparison. Lift it and feel how its texture is grittier than you expected, how it scrapes the palm with every scroll through other people's highlight reels. Set it beside a small fountain and hear the water remind you that the only music you need tonight is the pulse in your wrists. Another stone says urgency. It is triangular. It digs into the tender part of the hand, and when you place it on the soil does not protest. It simply receives it, because earth knows how to hold what we do not need to carry. Another stone says fixing, and it is heavier than it looks because it hides smaller pebbles, called advice and self-criticism and the performance of being okay. Empty them all with a patient tilt and watch them roll into the dark where they can become gravel for a path. You will walk later with better shoes. Each stone you set down frees a muscle to lengthen, a breath to deepen, a thought to quiet, and this is the math of ease. If the mind objects, saying that without these stones you will forget what is important, smile and choose one pebble called intention to keep in your pocket, warm and smooth, the size of a quiet yes. Touch it when you need to remember who you are. Turn your attention to the shoulders, which often wear invisible epaulets woven from duty. Imagine unpinning them and placing them on the nightstand next to your keys, trusting they will be there in the morning if needed. Let the shoulder blades slide down the back like two books being returned to their shelves. The belly likes to be asked rather than ordered. Invite it to soften by imagining a warm hand under it, holding without squeeze. And notice how the lower back relaxes in response, a small truce achieved by kindness. If a thought returns with the energy of a campaign, saying there is still so much to do, ask it to write everything on a paper boat and place the boat on a river that flows behind your closed eyes. Watch the boat drift around a bend. If it circles back, watch again. Repetition is not failure. It is tide, and tide works on stone in ways time can measure only by patience. Bring awareness to your hands as if you were a sculptor who is finished for the night. Let clay fall from your fingers in imagination. Wash them in a stream of breath. Dry them on the quiet air. Turn the palms upward, the gesture of receiving usually reserved for offerings, and consider that sleep itself is an offering you have been shy to accept. Say yes by doing nothing. In the hips, there are house keys to rooms you no longer need to guard. Imagine unhooking the keyring from your belt and placing it gently on the dresser, as if telling an old sentinel they may rest. With your legs heavy and warm, imagine they are logs laid across a stream, sturdy enough to hold while water moves beneath, which means you can be simultaneously grounded and in the presence of motion without being pulled. If a memory stings, use an image that my teachers offer like a soft cloth. See the memory as a knot in a necklace, and with patience, roll the knot between the pads of thumb and finger, not yanking, not cursing, just small circles while the necklace rests on your palm. Soon there is a little give, and more soon after, and the chain slides free with a whisper you can feel. The knot was never impressed by force. It waited for warmth. Warmth is the theme of tonight. Where there is coldness in your stories, bring the candle of breath close enough to see. Not so close, you scorch. Where there is restlessness in your limbs, picture a cat needing a blanket before sleep, a ritual as old as domesticated comfort. Let your feet make the smallest movements under the sheet, pressing and releasing until they settle into the impression of contentment. Where the spine meets the pillow, imagine a conversation between old friends who do not need to prove anything. The pillow says, "I can hold you." The spine says, "I will allow you to," and the agreement radiates safety. Practice small relinquishments inside your room so your mind learns the choreography. Place your phone face down and slightly farther than usual. Turn the clock so numbers cannot shout. Dim the light an extra notch. Slide the curtain until only a sliver of night winks through. Smooth the sheet with the back of your hand. These motions tell your nervous system you are moving from the marketplace to the monastery. Even if your monastery is a rented room where peace arrives by arrangement rather than architecture. Hear the room as an ally, the hum of a fridge, a mantra, the distant traffic, a river, the neighbor's footsteps, a reminder that you are part of a village, even when doors are closed. If guilt arises for resting, remember that fields lie fallow to remain fertile and musicians pause between notes to make music. Your pause is part of your offering to the world. If fear says that loosening the grip will invite chaos, test it by loosening one finger and observing how the object in your hand remains even while blood returns to the skin. Loosen another finger after a while, then another, until the hand is open over the object and you can see that what belongs will stay and what does not will leave without theft. This practice can be as literal as holding the edge of your blanket lightly and watching how it supports you anyway. On the inhale, imagine a tide washing up the shore of your body to the collarbones. On the exhale, imagine it receding to the ankles, carrying small shells of tension with it. With each wave, the beach smooths. In your mind's garden, follow the path to a bench under a tree and sit with a friend who is also you, the you who trusts. Let them speak in the simple language of the heart. Set down one worry here, one there, no rush, no audience, and notice how the bench does not become heavier. The earth beneath it spreads the weight. Your task is choiceless kindness to the present moment. If the phrase feels right, breathe in the words let and breathe out the word go. Not as spellcasting, but as rhythmic agreement with how things actually move. Before your eyelids drift, choose a single pebble of intention for tomorrow and place it in the pocket of your attention. Something humane and small, like sending a kind message. Drinking water before coffee, stepping outside for 2 minutes of sky, placing one item in a donation bag. These small acts keep the path clear so the heavier stones do not gather again unnoticed. Then return to the warmth under your palms. The door of the ribs, the bench in the garden, the paper boat turning a corner, and trust the night to do what night does when you are willing. Gather you into its dark wings, not to hide you from life, but to carry you into a quieter life within the same life. If sleep takes you, let it. If wakefulness remains, continue placing stones on the soft earth beside the bed with every exhale. Because this too is rest, and rest is the floor upon which wisdom stands in the morning. There is a tenderness inside you that has survived every winter and still leans toward light. And tonight, we will sit beside that tenderness as if beside a small fire, and learn how to care for the places that still ache to be held. Because letting go without caring becomes indifference, while caring without letting go becomes exhaustion. And the middle way is compassion that knows how to cradle and release in the same breath. Begin by remembering that the wounds you carry were often made when you were doing your best with information and safety you did not yet have. This remembrance loosens the knot of blame and makes room for repair. Lie back and let the body take a shape that whispers yes. The kind of yes a tired child hears from a gentle elder. And place one hand over the heart and one over the belly as if you are closing two doors softly so the room becomes warm. Feel the weight and warmth of your palms, the most honest medicine you own, and invite the breath to move underneath them like a tide that never judges the shore it meets. On the inhale, imagine gathering scattered parts of yourself from today: the rushed voice, the embarrassed self, the brave self, the distracted self, the generous self, and on the exhale, imagine welcoming them home without demanding explanations. Because the home you are building with practice is large enough for everything human. If old pain rises like a careful animal peeking from the trees, do not chase it and do not turn away. Turn your face slightly toward it and offer a simple sentence that does not inflate or minimize. I see that you hurt. I am here. We can move slowly. Sometimes pain answers with heat or tightness or a small tremor. And your only job is to accompany it with breath, the way you would accompany a friend on a night walk, keeping pace with their steps rather than dragging them into speed. Compassion is not pity and not permission for harm. It is the courage to remain present with truth while choosing care as the method of change. If a voice arrives that speaks in the harsh tones you once heard from someone whose love was clumsy or absent, notice the voice as a visitor rather than a ruler, and invite another voice to the table. The one that has studied kindness in quiet rooms and knows how to talk to the frightened with respect. Let that voice try a practice as old as monasteries and as intimate as breathing. With each inhale, breathe in the part of you that is suffering as if you are giving it room. And with each exhale, send back warmth, space, and steadiness. A small exchange that teaches the body it does not have to export pain to be safe. It can metabolize pain into clarity the way trees metabolize light into shade. If it helps to use words, let the inhale carry the phrase, breathing in, I meet this pain, and let the exhale carry breathing out, I offer ease, and adjust the words until they sound like you. Continue for a few minutes and notice how the edges of the wound blur. Not erased but less sharp, the way ice in a cup softens at the rim first. Turn attention to the face you wear toward yourself each day and check whether it is the face you would offer a dear friend. If not, try softening the brow, allowing the mouth to find a hint of a smile that signals safety to the nervous system. And let that face become your own mirror for the night. Imagine now that the heart is a small room with a window and a chair. In the chair sits the version of you that struggles the most. Perhaps the one who speaks too fast when afraid. Perhaps the one who stays too long where love is scarce. Perhaps the one who pretends indifference to avoid rejection. Sit on the floor beside them, lower than they are, so your posture says, I am not here to dominate, but to accompany. Ask one question without agenda. What do you need from me tonight? Then listen without planning a speech. Maybe the answer is rest, or water, or a promise to stop promising what hurts. Maybe the answer is, please forgive me for not knowing. And your task is to say aloud, I forgive you for not knowing when you did not know, and I will help you learn. Forgiveness here is not a court ruling. It is a change in weather that allows healing to occur. Let a few breaths pass in that weather. If memories arrive that still carry charge, you can use the gentlest form of which is not rewriting history, but placing in the memory a witness who is missing then. A witness who can say to your younger self, I see what happened. It was not your fault to hold alone. I am with you now. Watch how the younger self's posture shifts under witness. How shame loosens like a scarf in spring and eyes lift from the floor. This is not fantasy. The nervous system updates when new care is offered, even in imagination, because imagination is one of its native languages. Bring your attention to the body as a landscape of places that tried to hold more than they should. The throat that swallowed words to keep peace, the chest that armored to feel safe, the belly that clenched to be ready for impact, the back that bore responsibilities beyond its measure. Lay your breath like warm cloth on each place and whisper specific kindness. Thank you for protecting me when protection seemed the only choice. You may lay down your armor tonight. Notice how gratitude relaxes what analysis cannot touch. If guilt appears, the guilt of not doing enough or being enough, ask it to present a ledger and see how fuzzy its numbers are. Then write one true line in your mind's book. Today, I practiced being gentle, and sign it with the name you use when you like yourself. Turn now toward others in the softest way. Think of a person who is easy to love and send a single silent wish. May you rest well. May your heart be light. And notice the pleasant warmth that arises when goodwill flows. Let it fill your chest and spill into your limbs. Then think of someone neutral, a passerby from today, and offer the same wish without needing to feel anything dramatic. The wish itself is a kind of breathing. Finally, if it feels safe, think of someone who is difficult and shrank the wish to the smallest size you can sincerely mean. Perhaps just may you be free from confusion, and place it gently like a seed on the soil between you and them. Not to erase boundaries, but to release your heart from the task of hatred. If this is too much, return to your own heart and place the wish there. Compassion is a circle that can be widened or narrowed according to capacity. Widen tomorrow if tonight is narrow. The practice also lives in the way you speak to yourself about fatigue. Replace the old phrase, I am lazy, with the truer phrase, I am tired. And notice how quickly the body stops bracing to defend itself and begins to request sensible care. Replace why cannot I with how can I help, and watch solutions appear the way stars appear when the porch light is turned off. You do not earn compassion by suffering more. You access it by telling the truth that you are a living creature with limits, and limits are where wisdom begins. Rest your attention on the rhythm of the breath again and allow it to be imperfect and faithful. Two qualities that describe every good friendship. If an inner critic complains that compassion will make you soft in the wrong way, test it with a memory of a time you were harsh to yourself and did not improve faster. Then remember a time you were kind and discovered energy to try again. Kindness is not a loophole out of effort. It is the fuel that makes effort sustainable. To ground this in the body, perform a brief ritual of repair with each exhale. Imagine mending a small tear in the fabric of your attention with a slow stitch. Not to hide that it once tore, but to make it stronger at that place. Move from the forehead down to the throat, chest, belly, pelvis, thighs, knees, shins, ankles, feet, stitching with breath, leaving the visible embroidery of care. When you reach the soles, imagine placing them on warm earth that says without words, "I have you." And let that message travel back up the legs like spring sap. If grief returns, cradle it with the same arms you would use for a child who woke from a bad dream. Hold until the trembling finishes its sentence, and then set it back into the bed of your chest with a kiss of breath. If joy comes unexpectedly, do not suspect it. Let it sit close without interrogating its reasons. Joy, too, is a medicine that does not require a prescription. At some point you may feel a quiet that is not empty but full, as if the house of your being has been cleaned enough to hear its own hum. And in that quiet you can place one intention for tomorrow that honors compassion as practice: to pause before speaking when the body is tight, to drink water before the second coffee, to step outside for 3 deep breaths, to thank the hands that wash dishes, to apologize promptly without ceremony, to ask for help a day earlier than usual. These are not resolutions with banners. They are small mercies that stack into a stairway you can climb without panting. As sleep approaches, trust that nothing essential will be lost by resting, that the work of healing continues under the floorboards like roots doing their dark and holy labor. Whisper one last time to the tender places, "I will not abandon you to speed or silence. I will return with breath and patience," and then let words dissolve. Let the breath be the only language spoken. Let the body be the listener and the bed the faithful friend. You are not a project. You are a garden at night, and the stars are out, and somewhere water is moving, and everything that needs attention will receive it in its season, including you. Control often dresses itself as care, and expectation often dresses itself as hope. So we keep inviting them to stay long past the hour when they become poor guests. And tonight we will learn to untie their knots without tearing the rope of our lives. Because the rope still needs to hold in storms even as the tangles loosen. Lie back and feel the shape of your body as if tracing a shoreline with your attention, a contour the night already knows how to hold. And notice where control lives first, perhaps in the brow that gathers like weather, in the chest that braces, in the belly that waits for a signal that never arrives. Let the breath reach these places without lecture, like warm water swaying against a dock. And remember that control is a story the nervous system tells when it has forgotten who carries the tide. On the inhale, acknowledge, "I have been trying so hard." On the exhale, allow the sentence, "and I can rest some of this effort now." Expectation is the cousin who keeps predicting how the evening will go and then grows angry when reality refuses the script. Greet this cousin with a smile that says, "You are free to speak while I am free not to obey." Close your eyes and imagine a soft table before you. On it lay the expectations that cling to you like burrs, the perfect sentence you will say one day, the precise way someone should love you, the faultless body that never tires, the career that proves your worth, the apology that finally arrives, the night of sleep that must begin exactly now. Place each one down as if setting teacups on saucers, not smashing, not hiding, simply laying them where you can see them, and bow to them because they arose to protect you from uncertainty. Then take a breath and watch how even porcelain shifts slightly in silence, how the air moves, how the room is never still. And let this small motion remind you that life is a conversation, not a decree. Untying a knot begins with slack. Offer slack by lengthening your exhale by a few gentle counts, so that your body receives the truth that nothing urgent must happen in this moment. When the mind insists that letting go means losing safety, ask it to show the evidence in the room: the bed supporting you, the roof sheltering you, the breath arriving without your management, the night moving forward whether you approve or not. And let these proofs soften the prosecutor's tone. If a scene appears in which you were overlooked or misunderstood, and the hand reaches for control like a reflex, touch your heart and whisper a sentence that returns dignity to the present. I release the demand that the past repay me tonight. I will honor my needs with clear boundaries tomorrow. Boundaries are the mature sibling of control, where control squeezes everything. Boundaries simply draw a line and rest, and you can feel the difference in your muscles. Imagine a circle of light around your body that moves with the breath. On the inhale, it brightens. On the exhale, it steadies. And within it, you are not available for arguments with phantoms. This is not withdrawal. It is clarity that allows kindness to be possible. Turn your attention to the tiny habits that maintain knots. The way the tongue presses to the roof of the mouth to hold back words. The way the shoulders creep up to listen for danger. The way the mind rehearses future conversations as if practice could prevent pain. Invite the tongue to drop, the shoulders to descend. The rehearsal to exit the stage for the night, and watch the knot slacken. If the rehearsal returns, give it a clipboard and a chair at the back of the theater with instructions to take notes for daylight. No one edits a play at midnight and finds rest. Now meet the deepest knot of control, the belief that peace equals certainty. Peace actually equals contact. You can be at peace inside a question when your feet are on the ground of breath. Test this by breathing into the soles of your feet as if the earth were listening, and breathing out through the spine as if the body were a willow learning again to sway. Let a memory surface of a time something better than your plan arrived after your grip softened, and let that memory stand as a witness that life sometimes exceeds our choreography when we stop stepping on its toes. Expectation narrows attention. Wonder widens it. Try a dose of wonder now. What if the next breath could feel 1% softer? What if the next thought could be greeted as weather instead of news? What if the next moment needed nothing added? 1% is enough to begin. Imagine the mind as a fisherman holding a net too tight. The fish cannot swim and the net itself starts to tear. Loosen your hold and watch the water move through, which is the point of nets and of awareness, to feel the current. To let what cannot be kept pass, to keep only what sustains. Keep the simple intentions that nourish, release the compulsions that exhaust. Keep the value of honesty, release the insistence that others mirror it on your schedule. Keep the practice of showing up, release the fantasy of applause. Keep devotion to what you love, release the choreography of how love must look. Your body understands this sorting. It has been doing it with oxygen for a lifetime, receiving what it needs and giving back what others need. Trust your animal wisdom. To help the animal relax, practice a gentle breath pattern called open hands breathing for 4 cycles. Imagine your inhale lifting to open hands to your heart. For 4 cycles, imagine your exhale turning the palms outward and letting invisible sand trickle back to the beach of the world. The sand being control that never belonged to you. After 8 cycles, rest in natural breathing and feel how the hands inside you are less clenched. If you notice irritation, which often hides behind control like a small guard dog, scratch it behind the ears by naming it directly. Oh, irritation, You wanted the world to fit, and breathe until it stops barking. If sadness seeps in as you release old plans, treat it like a friend packing boxes after a move. Help it fold the last shirt, label the last carton, tape the last edge, then stand at the doorway and wave as the truck pulls away. Trust that new rooms will someday hold your laughter again. Control imagines that without it, nothing good will happen. Wisdom knows that goodness grows in ecosystems, not empires. Cultivate an inner ecosystem, a little sun of gratitude, a little rain of tears, rich soil of rest, wind of fresh perspective, shade of silence. Tonight your task is soil and shade. Sink deeper into the mattress as if you were consenting to gravity's steady love. Let the breath cool the inner temperature of urgency by 0.5 degree each exhale, and feel how the nervous system recalibrates to a climate where sleep can grow. If an expectation about sleep itself clamps down how many hours you must get, how quickly you must drift, smile and replace measurement with hospitality. Welcome drowsiness like a shy guest. Dim the room of your attention. Stop asking questions. Offer it a chair by the window and let it come closer at its own pace. Hospitality is the opposite of control and often achieves what control chases away. Place now on the table one last expectation. The one that says you must be a different person before you can rest. And bow to it before you set it aside, because it has tried to motivate you with its false promise. Rest is how the person you are becomes strong enough to grow. Rest is not the reward for perfection. It is the fuel for gentleness. Breathe that in as a fact, not a slogan. Scan your body as if searching for remaining knots, and when you find one, imagine it is a ribbon rather than barbed wire. Pull one end slowly with the exhale and watch the loop loosen. Then the next loop, until the ribbon lies in a curve that pleases the eye. Sometimes the knot hides in the mind as a single word should. Replace it with could for tonight and feel space return. Sometimes the knot hides in the heart as a sworn oath never to be hurt again. Replace it with a promise to protect yourself with clear seeing and timely leaving rather than with constant bracing, and feel the ribs move with more ease. Picture the night as a wide river and you as a boat that was trying to row upstream all day. Put the oars inside, lie back, and notice that the current still moves. That progress happens without paddling when you align rather than dominate. Alignment is the secret life of letting go. It trusts the direction of things and participates without violence. To anchor this in a single ordinary gesture, reach an arm across your body and rest your palm on the opposite upper arm. A cross-body hug that tells your nervous system someone reliable is here and that someone is you. Feel the warmth transfer and imagine it melting the last stubborn knot near the shoulder blade. That place that aches from carrying bags of years. If a wisp of fear whispers that you will forget what matters by releasing control, sit it down at the table with a pen and ask fear to write the 3 values you will carry regardless. Perhaps they are kindness, clarity, courage. Read them quietly and place the paper under your pillow like a letter from a friend. What matters stays when control leaves. What leaves under pressure was not yours to begin with. Now, reduce the night to 3 companions: breath, weight, warmth. Breath moving in and out with the comfort of tides. Weight sinking into the loyal earth through fabric and foam. Warmth gathering in the hands, the chest, the belly as if a hearth were being tended by unseen monks who specialize in rest. With these 3, you are equipped for whatever this hour brings. Let everything else be ships on the horizon, lights you do not need to captain. If sleep arrives, Let it lean you into darkness like a trusted guide. If wakefulness lingers, rest anyway, unknotted, unhurried, friendly toward your own existence. The art of living lightly is built one released expectation at a time, one relinquished command at a time, one affectionate breath at a time. Tonight you practiced all three, which is enough, which has always been enough, which will be enough again when you forget and remember, forget and remember. Like waves finding shore without asking for permission. Tonight we will practice a simple ceremony of release as you settle towards sleep. A gentle sequence that invites the body to soften, the mind to quiet, and the heart to rest in a wider kindness than thought can manufacture. Begin by arranging yourself as comfortably as you can, letting the pillow cradle the head and the blankets meet you like friendly weight. Allow the mouth to close softly and the breath to move through the nose without effort. Imagine a small lantern of attention in your hand. You will carry it through the rooms of your body and set it down where light is no longer needed. First, bring the lantern to the crown of the head and notice the faint buzz of the day still humming there. The leftover electricity of screens, conversations, and choices. On your next exhale, imagine a window opening and a night breeze passing through, carrying that buzz into the dark where crickets know what to do with it. Slide the light to the forehead and smooth the skin from the center toward the temples with your attention, as though you were ironing a favorite shirt with patient strokes. Let the brow broaden, the skin cool slightly, and a quiet message arrive. Nothing to figure out now. Move to the eyes and feel the gentle weight of the lids, the small muscles that have looked and scanned and guarded all day. Tell them the watch is over. The horizon is safe tonight. With each exhale, the eyes settle deeper into their sockets as if into warm sand. Let the cheeks soften and the tiny hinges near the ears release. The tongue drops from the roof of the mouth and the jaw loosens as if unbuttoning a collar. Notice the throat as a hallway that has carried words, swallowed disappointments, and held back sentences. On the inhale, bathe the hallway in cool air. On the exhale, send a warm current through it, and let the walls widen by a breath's width, which is enough for relief to pass. Lay the lantern at the entrance of the chest and feel the quiet drumming there. A faithful rhythm that has escorted you through every hour. Imagine doors at the front and back of the ribcage. On the inhale they open, admitting night air scented with rest. On the exhale they close gently but not completely, leaving a gap for ease to keep circulating. Place your palm over the heart if that feels right and sense heat gathering under your hand, heat that says I am here and I am kind. Let that warmth drift down the sternum into the belly. The belly has stories. It gathers news it does not need and rehearses outcomes it cannot control. Offer it a permission it rarely hears. You may rise fully on the inhale and fall fully on the exhale. With 3 slow breaths, allow that permission to become muscle memory. As the belly softens, the lower back unwinds like a rope placed in warm water, and the spine settles deeper into the mattress, trusting the ground again. Bring the lantern to the shoulders and watch them lower by a millimeter. Then another, like 2 birds folding their wings after a long flight. Let the light travel down the arms, past elbows, forearms, wrists, into the hands. Open the hands by half an inch and imagine grains of sand that are not yours trickling out between the fingers. Small responsibilities that found their way in, tiny decisions that can return to the shore. Feel the hands grow heavy and honest, as if they belonged to someone who works with soil and knows when to rest. Turn the lantern toward the pelvis and hips, a crossroads where we brace without knowing. Picture a wide bowl here, resting squarely, and with each exhale allow the bowl to settle, its rim even, its contents calm. Down the thighs now, the sturdy pillars that carry you from room to room. Let them be logs on a quiet river, floating but steady. Knees soften, calves untwist, ankles loosen like knots, carefully teased until the cord runs straight. Finally arrive at the feet, the excellent servants. Sense the heel, the arch, the ball, the length of each toe. Imagine roots growing from the soles into the earth beneath the building, through foundation and soil and stone, finding coolness and dark and deep support. Breathe through the roots for a few cycles, in through the soles, out through the soles, and let the body take the hint that gravity is a friend. Now we will practice a soft cadence to hush the mind. Breathe in to a count of 4, pause for a count of 2, breathe out for a count of 6, pause for a count of 2. Repeat this gentle box with rounded corners 5 times, adjusting the numbers smaller if needed, always choosing comfort over ambition. As breath lengthens, thoughts begin to slow as if traffic lights were turning red one by one along a nighttime avenue. If a thought insists on speaking, nod to it without leaning in, as you might acknowledge a neighbor while keeping your doorway warm. The practice tonight is not to silence thought by force, but to redirect attention toward sensations that cooperate. Bring to mind the image of a lake at night, a wide black mirror cradling the moon. Each inhale is a pebble dropped from a low height, ring after ring moving outward, wide and gentle. Each exhale is the surface returning to smoothness. If memories arrive, let them be stars reflected in the dark water. They shine and they shimmer, and they do not require you to dive. We will offer the nervous system a simple descent, a staircase with 10 steps. At each step, you will deposit something you no longer need to carry into sleep. At step 10, place down urgency. At step 9, place down evaluation of this practice. At step 8, place down the role you performed most today. At step 7, place down tomorrow's script. At step 6, place down the headline that lingered. At step 5, place down the sentence you wish you had said. At step 4, place down the sentence you wish you had not said. At step 3, place down the idea that rest must be earned. At step 2, place down the insistence on certainty. At step 1, place down the project of being perfect. Step onto the soft landing below, where the air is cooler and the floor is steady. Lie down there inside yourself and listen to the quiet that is not empty but full of safe space. Now we will weave a brief loving kindness for the sleeping world, because goodwill softens the edges of the self and makes a cradle larger than the body. On an inhale, whisper, inside, may I be held. On an exhale, whisper, may I release. Next inhale, may you be held. Exhale, may you release, directing it toward someone easy to love. Then toward a neutral person, may you be held, may you release. Finally, toward all beings, may we be held, may we release. Let the last wish fade like a bell whose tone keeps moving after the strike is gone. Return to the breath and let it choose its own length now. If tension flickers anywhere, place a fingertip or a palm there, as if placing a small stone to keep a page from turning in the wind. And in 2 or 3 breaths, feel the page settle. We will practice one more gesture of letting go, called the paper boats. Imagine a low lantern on a wooden pier extending into dark water. On the pier is a small stack of paper and a pen. Write, without words, one concern on the first sheet and fold it into a boat. Place it on the water and watch it drift, carrying its own little light. Repeat with the next concern and the next, until the stack is gone or your interest in folding dissolves. Boats drift around the bend, their glow joining the soft constellations of town windows across the lake. Nothing is lost. Everything is being carried. You are carried too. If the mind tries to return to planning, offer it a job that does not disturb rest. Count exhalations from 1 to 10, starting again kindly whenever you lose track. Each count rides an exhale like a leaf rides a current. 1, 2, 3, unhurried, unimportant, the numbers like distant buoys marking a safe channel. When you reach 10, set the habit down and float. Let the senses dim as if a caring hand were lowering sliders on a mixing board. First hearing softens, until sounds blur into a single friendly hush. Then the sense of sight behind closed lids darkens a shade. Then the sense of effort releases, as if the muscles that choose were relieved of duty. What remains is breath moving, weight held, warmth spreading. If wakefulness lingers, give it a place to rest. Imagine a hammock tied between two trees under a quiet sky. Invite wakefulness to lie there and sway while the rest of you sleeps. Tell it kindly that it does not have to patrol the fence. If sleep approaches, do not greet it with applause. Pretend you have known each other forever and simply make room. The body knows the sequence from here. Pulse a touch slower, breath a touch shallower, temperature a touch lower, mind a touch quieter. Trust these adjustments to happen without inspection. You have made the right offerings. Attention without judgment, breath without force, images without drama, kindness without performance. Before you drift, place 3 small promises like pebbles in the pocket of tomorrow. To pause before rushing, to speak to yourself as you would to a friend, to return to the breath when stories grow loud. Then let the pocket disappear, let tomorrow dissolve into the mist beyond the pier, and let the lantern of attention, which has guided you room to room, finally dim. If it feels safe to do so, open your hand inside your mind and let the lantern float upward like a small balloon into the night. You are now lying in a room held by quiet, inside a body held by gravity, inside a life held by changes that can be met, inside a world that continues breathing whether you are watching or not. Give yourself to this larger breathing. Inhale as if welcomed by something tender. Exhale as if returning that tenderness. Let the last words you hear be simpler than thought can argue with. Here, now, soft, and let the rest be silence doing its beautiful work. When morning comes, you can carry tonight's softness into daylight like a hidden thread woven through your hours. A quiet vow to live with open hands, even while you type, cook, answer, and decide. Because letting go is not a ritual confined to darkness, but a way of arranging attention, so that life can move through you without snagging on every fear. Wake as if you were surfacing from a gentle lake, not a battlefield. Before you look at a screen, place 1 palm to the heart and 1 to the belly, and take 3 honest breaths, greeting the day the way you would greet a friend at your door. And decide 1 small intention that anchors the art of release in the fabric of action. Something like, I will pause before I react. I will choose a kinder word than my first one. I will set down what is not mine at least once before lunch. Move through your rooms as if they are monasteries hidden in plain sight. Rinse the cup and feel the water as permission. Fold the blanket and call it gratitude. Put the phone down once and call it sovereignty. When tension rises at the first email that sounds sharp, Notice the body guarding the doorway of the chest, and practice the micro letting go that prevents macro entanglement. One long exhale. One sentence of inner truth: I do not need to carry their weather. One question of clarity: what is the kind next step that aligns with my values? And then act from that steadier place. In conversation, let release appear as listening. You do not have to clutch your point like a lifeboat. Offer your view with soft shoulders and let silence hold the rest. If disagreement warms the face and tries to clinch the jaw, relax the tongue and feel how thought loosens with it. The body leads the mind as often as the mind leads the body. When you catch yourself in the reflex to perfect an outcome, examine the reflex tenderly as a habit formed to win safety and whisper, "We will try," for excellence without the poison of obsession. Then set a humane boundary on your effort, a time to stop, a breath to honor enough. Letting go in work does not mean neglect. It means choosing fidelity to reality over fantasy. Staying with the present task rather than decorating it with imagined applause or imagined shame. Practice small exits from the loops that drain you. Close a tab. Step outside for 2 minutes of sky. Drink water before you ask caffeine to impersonate rest. Put a hand on the doorknob and feel cool metal as proof that you live here, now. Notice where your schedule has been padded by fear of missing out, and remove one optional weight. In the space that returns, schedule nothing and keep the appointment with nothing as if it was sacred, because it is. Carry the image of the paper boats into afternoon errands. When a worry begins to trail you like an over-helpful companion, pause in a grocery aisle or at a red light and fold it mentally. Set it on the river of breath and drive or walk again with less freight. When love asks for you in relationships, let go of choreography and bring presence. Ask what is alive for you right now rather than assuming you already know. Tell the truth in a voice your nervous system can sustain, and accept that outcomes you cannot control might be kinder than outcomes you can. Boundaries become graceful when you release the demand that others applaud them. Say your no or your not now with the humility of someone protecting both hearts from resentment. If you stumble and speak sharply, release perfection quickly by repairing quickly. I am sorry. I was tight. Here is the respect you deserved. And let the apology be the letting go of superiority. When loneliness visits, do not chase it off with noise. Set a place at your small table, share a breath and a glass of water, and let the visit end when it ends without declaring it a permanent climate. When envy sparks, recognize it as a misdirected wish and return it to its source. What is the good I long for that I can cultivate within my sphere? Then take one seed action instead of watering the briar of comparison. When the world's sorrow arrives through the news and your chest tightens, practice the circle of compassion. Breathe in the pain you can feel. Breathe out steadiness and a single concrete response within reach. Call, vote, volunteer. Speak then, set down the rest so you can keep offering tomorrow. At meals, let release taste like blessing. Pause before the first bite and exhale the day's speed from your jaw. Put the fork down twice and notice satiation arrive earlier than habit predicts. Stop before you are full and feel how leaving space on the plate teaches the heart to leave space in arguments. Walk as if the ground were an old friend. Let your feet rehearse the art of letting go with every step that lifts and falls. And while walking, practice seeing without collecting: a leaf, a face, a cloud, a sound received and released. The senses becoming a small monastery procession through ordinary streets. When you shop, release one purchase you do not need as a blessing to your future clarity. When you tidy, place one object you never use into a box for another person as a blessing to their future ease. If you parent, teach, letting go as play. Build a tower and knock it down with laughter. Draw in chalk and let rain decide the gallery. Practice the ritual of the regret bucket at night. Name one thing from the day you would redo. Pretend to place it in a bucket, then tip the bucket into the imaginary ocean while saying, "Tomorrow we try again." If you lead a team, model release by ending meetings on time, by refusing to glorify burnout, by saying "I do not know" with calm eyes, by praising the process more than the metrics when the process embodied your values. If you are aging and you are. If you are breathing, practice letting go of speed while keeping curiosity, exchanging the currency of urgency for the currency of attention. Let hair, skin, strength, or roll fall as leaves do, grateful for seasons. If illness visits, release the story that you are your usefulness and choose the story that you are your presence. Let others carry for a while and call it love. At dusk, prepare a small closing ritual so the nervous system learns how to set the bag down each day. Power the devices off as if lowering a theater curtain. Dim the lights as if the room itself were exhaling. Speak one sentence of gratitude that names something so small the mind cannot argue with it. And lay your hand on the doorframe of the bedroom as if entering a sanctuary, because you are. In the dark, practice mercy with yourself in the form of consistency without punishment. If you forget the breath, remember it. If you snap, repair. If you grasp, notice and soften. If you cannot soften, allow and breathe. If you cannot allow, name and breathe. If you forget everything, sleep and begin again. Let letting go become a style of attention carried into every domain: money, work, love, creativity, so that generosity replaces hoarding, clarity replaces control, responsiveness replaces rigidity, and presence replaces performance. Make art from what you release. Write a list of 10 things you no longer carry and turn it into a poem titled "What Stayed." Or plant a small garden and compost your old journals. Or hum a tune while discarding an outdated mask and call the tune your true name. When fear whispers that if you do not hold everything, it will fall apart, look at the sky and notice how much it balances without your help. Then ask the smallest practical question: what is mine to hold now? And hold only that. End each day as you began it, with a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly, returning the books to the shelf, and whisper 3 permissions to seal the practice into the night. I am allowed to be unfinished and still at peace. I am allowed to rest without a verdict. I am allowed to love without a leash. In time, these permissions accumulate into a posture the body recognizes. Shoulders down, jaw soft, gaze steady, breath generous, hands ready to give and to receive. This posture is how freedom feels when it is not loud. It is not a trophy. It is the quiet expertise of belonging to your life. Carry it lightly across thresholds, into rooms that still worry, into decisions that still wobble, and let it speak for you when you forget the words. Let it tuck you in when lights go out and the river of thought begins to shine with stars. And let it remind you gently that you are not here to hold the river still, but to float honestly upon it, tonight and tomorrow, and the long ribbon of days ahead. This is the art, to release without abandoning, to care without clinging, to act without hardening, to rest without vanishing, to love without a cage. And when you forget us, you will, because you are human, return to the breath that has been waiting at the shore of now, and step back into the water with open hands. You have walked with me through a gentle arc of release, learning to trust breath over battle, presence over prediction, and tenderness over the old armor that once kept you safe but now keeps you awake. And in this arc we practiced naming waves without drowning in them, letting impermanence light the room instead of frighten it, setting down one small stone at a time until the path felt kinder underfoot, offering compassion to the parts of you that still ache, loosening the knots of control and expectation, and finally crafting a bedside ceremony to end the day with soft authority, so that sleep becomes a side effect of belonging rather than a prize for perfection. Remember that nothing here requires ideal conditions or heroic will. The practice is humble and cumulative, breath by breath, a series of mercies that turn into a way of living. When the mind argues for old habits, smile and return to the three companions that do not leave: breath, weight, warmth, and let them carry you through any midnight weather. When morning comes, take the softness with you in small decisions. Pause before reacting. Choose a kinder word. Release one unnecessary burden. Keep one humane promise to your body, and let the day be a monastery hidden in plain sight. If tonight's guidance gave you even 1 degree more ease, I invite you to make this sanctuary part of your routine. Follow, subscribe, and return each evening to practice with me so your nervous system can learn the sound of safety by heart. Share this session with someone who is tired of holding everything alone. Leave a note about what loosened for you and request topics you want to explore next. Our community grows with your voice. For deeper rest, cue this practice again tomorrow night, or choose any single exercise: the paper boats, the staircase of release, the open hands. Breathe in and repeat it until your body recognizes it as a path home. You are not behind and you are not broken. You are a living being learning a gentler way to love, to act, and to sleep. Close your eyes now, place a hand on your heart, and whisper the permissions we have earned together. I am allowed to be unfinished and still at peace. I am allowed to rest without a verdict. I am allowed to love without a leash. Thank you for being here. I will meet you again at the shoreline of breath on the next night's tide.